Warning, F-bombs are armed and probably going to be dropped this time. I was just reading an article about how the negotiations in Istanbul are going. I want to read you the words. According to ISW, the Kremlin is merely staging a pretense of interest in negotiation, issuing unacceptable ultimatums while showing no genuine willingness to compromise. The report emphasized that Moscow does not view its territorial claims as negotiable issues for ending the war, but rather as preconditions for a temporary ceasefire. That should tell you really all you ever needed to know, but it's actually so much worse. I told you this was going to happen. I said this a year ago, but nobody listened. How did I know this was going to happen? Because I've done it myself. In my gaming writing from before I was mandatory carry, I actually specifically talk about this exact scenario. Empire A and Empire B exists. Empire A has just come off a big war. It's depleted their resources. They've made a lot of allies that they owe a lot of things to. A lot of the allies, a lot of A's allies come from territories that are being occupied by B. They want their homelands back. Okay, great. Good. We'll go to war with them next. As a pretext to war. A sends an ambassador to speak to the queen of B and says, we want peace, but here's our conditions. You got to meet all of these demands. The ambassador is actually sent with instructions that says, and then make some other unreasonable demands if all else fails. B obliges handily. Yeah, no. No, we're not at war right now. We'll be at war someday, maybe. For right now, just go away. A knows that these conditions are going to be rejected, so they just sit back. Now, in that universe, B is hated because they're a slaver empire. They've invaded thousands of worlds, just destroyed so many lives, and we're still had collaborated with the empire that A just destroyed. Okay, great. A then sets up a colony in some disputed territory. This disputed territory had been part of B's empire when they assimilated into this previous destroyed empire. And part of the concessions was that they'd give up some of these systems. And, so now A is claiming this system right here had been part of B before. They're expecting to get it back, or they want it back, more the point. A say, no, not so much. Then they settle it in a way that makes it inhospitable to any other form of life, one of their allies. It's hospitable, of course, to one of their allies, but to no other form of life in the universe. B does what B had always done in the past before assimilating. They blew up the world, or more to the point, they used their equivalent of nuclear bombs to the point where it could never be inhabited again. Does that sound familiar? A little like threatening to nuke London, Berlin, and Washington, D.C. Just a little bit, maybe? I don't know. Well, tell me down in the comments. Make unreasonable demands so you can claim to be the victim because, well, they weren't willing to negotiate in good faith. Yeah, because you made unreasonable demands. Now, of course, the scenarios are not a 1-1 analogy, and I acknowledge that. But it is a pretty fucking good analogy. This is how I knew Russia never intended negotiate in good faith. And I don't want to claim that the Russians read my playbook, because I know I borrowed it from somewhere 20, 30 years ago. Something I'd read somewhere and I've forgotten about. But it sat in the back of my mind for 10, 12 years until I started writing myself, and then it came out again. No big deal, right? But the same scenarios that I read, Russians read, and now they're trying to pretend to be the victims of anything. Keep calm, mandatory carry on, and pray, because some of you really need to find Jesus.